Welcome back to the van build. If you're new here, we're Nat and Cat. If you've been following the series, you'll know we're building a one-of-a-kind camper van that can carry us and our motorbike all the way across Europe. The problem is, we're running out of time. With less than a month to go until we set off, we've got a huge amount left to do. Every episode now is a race against the clock to get the van finished. So let's get into today's episode and see if we can get one step closer to hitting the road. Hello and welcome back to another ridiculously hot day. We are running out of time. We have, I think, 5 weekends before we need to go, and basically we're nowhere near ready. So as we left you last week, we got all the frames and stuff in. Not that the upper cabinet's done or anything like that yet, but what I really want to focus on this weekend and the next weekend is getting all the electrics in. Once the electrics are in, we can start thinking about lights and finishing things off and putting the water in, because obviously the water needs electricity as well. So once the electrics and the water are in, they're the two biggest jobs done, and we can start doing all the little things, painting the cabinets and things like that. So what I want to do is, here is where the electric wall is going to go. The water heater is going to go next to that. So what I need to do is sort of put a thin back panel on here, and then create a station, if you like, for the electrics, map out where everything's going to go. We've got the big inverter charger, the 2 batteries, and all the other little bits and fuse boxes, etc. that go with it. So that's what I'm going to start doing now, building the main electrical station. Right, before we get into the electrics, I just want to take you through something that I've used on this build that I found incredibly useful, and that is WireMyVan. Now, this isn't a sponsored video, but I do have an affiliate link that I'll put in the description, which will save you some money off if you choose to use the software, and it will earn us a small commission as well. During this van build and my last build, I've used AI quite a lot to figure out what wires I need, what fuses I need, what components do I need, and what order to put them in. Now, because I've got some knowledge of 12-volt systems already, when it says something that I know to not be true, then I can challenge it or rule it out and do something else. However, I know that a lot of people don't have that kind of knowledge and can sometimes blindly follow AI, believing that it's always right. This isn't the case. That's where WireMyVan comes in. So there's 2 things you can do with WireMyVan. The first thing is you can tell it what components you've got. The second thing is you can tell it what components you want. And then from there, it will create a full wiring diagram for you with everything laid out, how to connect it, what fuses you need, what wire size you need, and what to connect in what order. Using the system, I was able to figure out the size of the cable, the fuses I need, the amount of wire I need, and then I could order it all and begin. Without that, I'd have been doing a lot of guesswork, over ordering, under ordering, so it really did come in handy. Not only that, but when it comes to wiring the stuff up in your van, you've got something you can follow. Having this wiring diagram meant that I could relieve some stress from my brain and just focus on, right, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there, which is really useful. But not only for that, if I was to sell the van in the future, I can sell it along with this wiring diagram, which is specific to this vehicle. And also, if I was taking it to someone else for them to do some repairs on it for me, I could give them the schematic and they would know exactly what is wired up to what in what order. If you have no idea whatsoever though, then this is even more useful, because it really does give you everything you need to be able to just say, right, I need this wire, this fuse, this goes there, job done. Now, as with any AI or automated software, you should always get it double checked by a specialist, but it's just a really, really useful piece of kit. As I said, I've genuinely found it incredibly useful for this build. So if you want to check it out yourself, the link is in the description. As I say, if you use the affiliate link below, you will get some money off, and we will earn a slight commission, which does help the channel going forward. So that's enough of that. Let's get on and show you what we've done. For the mains hookup, we've got this little external port that's got magnets in it to stop it from opening up when you're driving, and this needs to go on the outside. So what I was looking at is, can it go on anywhere here rather than having to cut through metal? And then I noticed that actually there's a vent. Right, show you on this side. there's a vent on the inside, and that goes out into this plastic bumper section there. So what I've done this side is cut that vent out and cut a hole. So now I'm going to see if it fits in there. Should have checked that first, but there you go. That's the hole. And there's the vent. It's not perfectly flush because of there's a very slight raise in it there, but obviously that's not screwed in. Don't mind that. There you go. So now all I need to do is get the screws and screw it into place. I'll probably, even though it's got a little gasket there, I'll probably put some sort of silicone around it as well, just to really stop water from getting in. And that's a pretty good place for it actually. Right, so I've measured and cut a piece of plywood for here. I've took the bottom bolts out of the bed frame, and it's going to go up to about this level all the way to the end. But before I do that, I'm going to put it in and then mark out the wheel arch area around there. So obviously it's cut out there and it will fit in. Just marked out where I think the arch is, and now I'm just going to cut it out with a jigsaw. So now the board's cut out. Before I attach it to the wall, I am going to go around and fill all the gaps that I needed to with expanding foam, where we couldn't get the insulation in. So there's a few gaps sort of in the middle of here and down below there, and in these little tiny holes and stuff like that, and then we'll do the whole of the van. Right, it's the next day now, and we've got all the expanding foam done where we need to do it. There's wooden boards on. So the next job is to kind of lay out all of the bits that we've got. We've got the inverter, DC-DC charger, batteries, consumer units under there, battery monitors and things like that. So we need to get a layout of where we want them to go, and then I need to create some kind of shelving system for them all to go on. The inverter is quite a big unit. That's going to be the most difficult thing to try and place, but I think that's going to go around here. And then the batteries, I'm not sure if I'm going to leave them up there or if I'm going to try and build a shelf and raise them up and put them up here, but I will show you once I've done it. Just put these posts in both sides, and now I'm just in the process of cutting out the 12mm ply that I'm going to put on the front of these across there, and that's what all my components are going to bolt to, or screw to. So I've got the two posts there and then some 12mm ply onto there. I put post in the middle as well and screwed all the way through all three lots. So I've drilled a hole for the shore power cable to come through, and I've cut out a bit for the water heater so that that can sit all the way back to here and doesn't have to sit in front of here, because it came out right level with the fridge basically, and we've still got to have the water connections on it. So now I'm just going to run through all my bits and sort of lay them out where I want them to go, how they need to connect, and make sure that there's enough space for everything, and the cables aren't just going to be looped around here, there and everywhere. So I'll show you what I decide once I've got them all mounted on. Oh my god, what a mess. So many bits need to go on. No wonder it's the scariest part of doing a van.
back out Saturday morning, back onto finishing off the electrics. So what I need to do now is, I've got the inverter hooked up. I've got the 12 volt batteries hooked up to the main bus bars with the cut-off switch and the shunt to monitor the outputs through the battery monitor. I've got this big 300 amp fuse in there, and I've got the 230 volt coming through from the shore power inlet into the inverter, and then that just comes around here and just sat there. What I need to do this morning is get the solar hooked up to the cut-off switch and then to the MPPT. I need to run a wire for the DC-DC part of this down the front of the van to the battery, which is under there, and then I need to attach this 230 volt into my 230 volt fuse box. Got a couple of extra, like we've got the Bluetooth monitor, which I think will probably go into the DC-DC slash MPPT. It could go into the inverter. I'll Google which one's more useful, but I think probably the MPPT and solar is the more useful one for the app. Then I just need to hook up my 12 volt circuits, or an outlet for my 12 volt circuits, so I can go to my lights, the fridge, you know, things like that. These are the solar panel connectors. You can buy them in big packs. You just got to make sure you get the right end with the right terminal. The short one goes in the bigger looking terminal. The longer one, which is the fatter one, goes in this one with the red ring on it. That is going to go on the negative wire here to go in there, and that's going to go on the positive wire to click into there. I'm not going to show you me putting them together. I'm probably not the best person to watch make connectors. It's not my favourite thing in the world to do, but the main thing if you're doing it is to have the right tools and make sure the connections are tight. Give them a pull. If they don't come off with a decent pull, then that's good enough. So that's all crimped on there now. With a pull, it's not coming off. It's nice and tight. I've got the little rubber grip section on it and the thread. Now I just need to push it into here. Can't really do it with one hand. There you go. Clicks in. Push this into there and then screw it on. Now that's all tight. Push it on there. I'll do the same with the other one. Solar's wired in to the charger, and the ground is wired into the negative bus bar. I will be getting some cable clamps to sort of route these cables properly, but for now they're okay. Nothing's live anyway. The next thing I'm going to do is connect the positive to there, but that needs to go through a fuse first. Just waiting on some cable clips now, so I can do a bit of cable management, tidy some of these up, clip them down, route them properly. This one, for example, demoed. And then that's it really, that's the main bit in. The only one I need is one more cable from here, from this fuse to the alternator, and I need an ignition switch feed for this ignition feed wire here into the DC-DC charger. Then I can just focus on all 12 volt circuits, like the fridge. I've got the 230 volt as well and 12 volt on the water heater, and then I've got the cable there to go into the 230 volt for the plug sockets that are going to be around here for the kitchen area. Okay, this is where I've got to. Everything is in, all connected up apart from the cable for the alternator, which will come into here, and then obviously all my 12-volt sockets that are, all my 12-volt systems rather, that are not up yet, like the lights and stuff like that, not connected. The only things I've got connected so far is the max fan and the fridge. I've got the 230 volts temporarily set up just so we can use it, but that needs sorting out properly. So yeah, basically it's running off the batteries and the solar, which at the minute is off. As you can see, if I turn that on, this light will come on. So solar input there. So the only one not on is this alternator, and then we've got this little display to tell us what's going on basically. And when the solar power is coming into it, this backlight starts flashing because the current's going the other way basically. For that, I need to figure out how I'm going to run a cable from the battery down to here. That's as much as that's going to go to for now. So I'm going to focus on getting it boxed in, getting the batteries strapped down, and then create a box around it with a shelf along here so there's some usable space, but I can still get to things like the inverter, the fuse box, the solar panel switch off, the isolators and things like that. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I've got the back panel on now there. I've got this front panel on here, cut out bit there for the wires that come through. I'm just going to make a front bit now that comes up to just about here, just above the batteries, just above the water tank, and then I'll cut the front of the water tank out so you can get to the controls and the pipes can come out. Once I've done that bit, I'm going to put a shelf above and a little back section on. As I said, this back section is only going to probably come up to here, so we can still access the cut-off points and the fuses. Okay, so I'm just wiring up the heater, the water heater. I'm not 100% on how to do it, but I think I've got it right. But the issue I've got is there's no power coming down to the controller, so I need to try and find some wiring instructions, because I've tried it multiple ways now and nothing makes a difference. This just doesn't light up. There's no power coming down this at all. There was no instructions with it. I can't work out if this has to go into here, but I've tried it both ways anyway, and nothing really happened. So try and find some wiring instructions and figure out why this isn't working. Otherwise I'm gonna have to contact Bobil and yeah, let them know it's not working and see what we've got to do there. I hope I've not got to take the heater back out, because that was a pain to screw down, but there you go. Alright, okay, figured it out. There's a wiring manual on the website. It should have come with one, but there was definitely not one in the box for the heater. There was literally the heater and that was it. The controller came in a different box, and that had 2 of these. So I don't know whether one of them should have been a wiring manual. Both user guides, but I think one of them probably should have been the wiring. But you've got here the 2 power. You've got power on the ground here, which you've got to add, so you don't get the wires for those. And they're what you want to hook up to your fuse box. So that's what's going to go where that orange fuse is. The next 2, so you've got power first, then ground. That is to the relay, which is built into the heater. So that allows the control to switch that on and off depending on the temperature. The temperature is this little multi-plug. So that's what I earlier thought was like the power and ground to the controller, but that is the temperature wires. Basically, once I figured out where this is going to go, I'll cut the powers to length and put them on, mount that up, job done. So then all we've got to do is do all the plumbing, water side of things, which once I've got this shelf added onto here, which now I've added in my fuse to my inverter there, and all my bits and bobs, I can get that shelf in,
get the back into it, and then the control is going to go on there, so I can put that in. Then this shelf is going to house some of my water system, like the accumulators and pumps and stuff like that. I'm going to try and not make the whole thing the water, but if it has to be that, then it has to be that. I'd like some storage for, you know, a couple of things on the shelf if possible, but we'll see kind of what space is there. If it works out better to have it all there, and it means we've got more, we can keep the middle free for storage, then that's fine. We can have a bit of storage this side as well, obviously, but one side at a time. Let's get this top shelf bit on then. Right, ignore the mess, because I can't be bothered to tidy it up, and I really need to wrap this video up now. So, all my electrics are in. These are my water gauges, fresh and waste. I've got my battery gauges there, I've got my heater control panel there, and the Bluetooth which goes to the DC-DC. My inverter is here. So we've got the Renogy Pro 3000 watt inverter charger. So that has shore power inlet round here. So we can hook up at campsites or at home if we want to charge the batteries that way. We've got our DC-DC and MPPT right there. I've had some bad reviews about these, but to be honest with you, I think it's more about how people set them up, but time will tell. Let's see how it gets on. We've got our shunt there, which is what the battery monitor reads off. Both our bus bars are here. We've got a 12 volt battery shut off up here, our solar shut off here, and we've got our 230 mains in there. So we've got fuses in all the right locations, as I said, all documented from WireMyVan, and I'll show you my wiring schematic that I got from there. I've got my 12 volt fuse box there, which I've still got a few things to put back in, which is why the case is still off of it. And I've not properly hooked up the 230 volt yet either, because I need to build the kitchen and stuff for that. I've got a extremely dodgy plug socket there, which I've been using as a temporary measure, but that will get changed, and then this will get covered, as well as I will leave a gap along here, which I'll show you when I do it, just to let the airflow come in and up and out, because I don't want all of that getting too hot. But yeah, let's say the thing with electrics is it always looks worse than it is. You always try and route it the best way you can, and then something just has to go across another thing and it starts to become a mess. But just route it the most tidy way you can, make sure the wires aren't chafing on anything sharp, and you'll be okay. So we've got wiring running up here, across there, that goes down to my alternator, which that will be hidden by the cover that goes there. We've got some cables up to here for 12 volts, because we've got a light here. We're going to have the wires coming through for the fan that's going to be in there, and obviously for the ceiling lighting. But yeah, that is all the electrics in and done, really. As I say, we've just got to tidy a few things up, and with the 230 volt for when we've got the kitchen in. But the plan is for that to have a set of plugs down here under the surface, and we'll have some above that we'll plug in for things that we need to plug in all the time. The ones below the worktop, that's going to be for the hob, which is going to be here, and then a twin up here. Yeah, I think it's more daunting than it needs to be. As I say, once you start doing it, the main things are make sure your connections are tight, make sure your wires are long enough but not too long, and just route them as neat as you can. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look like a perfect picture by the time you're done. There'll always be somebody moaning that it's not good enough or that shouldn't be there, but ignore them. If it works, if it doesn't get hot and it doesn't rub on anything, you'll be okay. And if it does rub on something, if you've fused it right, it won't matter anyway. So the best thing to do is just have a go. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, fire is the worst that can happen, but chances are it won't. All right, see you in the next one.